Every month, we have been bringing, very relevant topics that are useful for not only raising the awareness, but also to build our skills in managing ourselves and just being better people and being able to support others emotionally, other people in our lives emotionally as well. We have had talks on addiction, positive attitude, suicide, empathy, listening, you name it, we've had it. And at the end of the session, we will be sharing a feedback form, very short one. Would love to hear from you, what topics you're interested in, so that we can do more on those as well. So again, thank you so much for coming for today's session. Before we jump into the session, just two lines on Pukar Foundation, who's actually the host of the session. Pukar Foundation is an emotional support helpline. It's a free service that provides support to anyone feeling stressed, depressed, or suicidal. That thoroughly trained volunteers. It's a volunteer-driven helpline. We are 22 volunteers, and the volunteers are thoroughly trained, well screened, and willing to listen to you and try to understand how you're feeling without any judgment and in a completely confidential manner. Now, if that's not something that the world needs, I don't know what is. We have been operating for almost a year now, and we're expanding our hours of service, which is currently 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day. We will have more volunteers, and hopefully we'll have a 24-hour line soon, right? Before I introduce the speaker, I think a lot of you already know her. We have a huge fan club here, I think. But some housekeeping rules. We will be recording the session, so in case you or anyone you know has missed it, it will be on our website, and we'll share it in the groups as well. We would like it to be as interactive as possible. I've already told Dr. Asha I'm going to interrupt her many times, and I've asked for her permission, and I'm sure you guys can do that as well by raising your hands if you have anything to add or ask. We will be having a Q&A at the end as well. And like I said, we will have a short feedback form towards the end. So if you can please help us fill that out. Now on to the star of the day, Dr. Asha Sid. She's an eclectic counselor. First of all, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Asha, for being here with us and
Thank you.
accepting this. Thank you
Anu,
for
make
being
it a
with us,
habit
Manu.
not to call me Dr. Asa, please. Call me Asa.
Yes, yes, that is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but I'm going to try my best. So Asha is an eclectic counselor, counseling psychologist, psychotherapist for more than 25 years now. She's really carved a niche, and I mean, I could really tell that people who she has interacted with have so much love and respect for her. As soon as I posted this on my groups, there are many people who are here just because it's Asha speaking today, right? So she has touched more than a few thousand people in her career. Name a space in mental health, and she has experience and education in that. Applied psychology, counseling, family constellations, art therapy, dance therapy, sound healing, transactional analysis, and somatic experiencing as well. She's a mindfulness coach, happiness coach, affirmative counselor. She also runs, along with all of this, she also runs Dr. Asha Sid Academy, which is soon to be renamed as Circle of Hope Center for Well-Being, through which she offers counseling, training, and other services. She is an excellent trainer, as you all will get to see today, and has worked with corporates, educational institutions, and government organizations as well on topics like life skills, mental health, and various other topics. Above all, she is humane and compassionate and reaches out genuinely to touch hearts wherever she goes in her professional and personal capacity. So, thank you. We are so honored that you're here today. Thank you so much. And before I hand it over to you, I'd just like to talk about the topic for just a minute, if that's okay. Um, Today, Asha will be helping us understand grief better. If there's one emotion, I think we can all say we have faced great difficulty in getting through, and something that each one of us has faced, it is grief. no matter how optimistic, positive attitude, all of that we have, this emotion always takes us by surprise. We just are left feeling not knowing what to do. It is a deeply personal experience. We don't know how to deal with it, and also don't seem to know how to help others who are dealing with it, what to say, what to do, what is the right thing to expect. Right? It is, while it's isolating, understanding the different stages and learning how to navigate them, I'm sure can provide some level of comfort. We have a lot of, I have a lot of questions for sure. What is it really? Is it only when we lose someone to death? Is it, what is normal in terms of recovery? Does one ever get over it? So many questions. And our goal, as always, is not only to offer insights and awareness, but also practical, ways that we can overcome this or help each other out. So let's begin this journey together. Dr. Asha, over to you. Thank you again very much.
Thank you, Anu. Thank you, Dolly. And a very good morning to all of you present here. Am I audible and am I clear? My first question. Okay, clear and audible. Yes, then we go ahead because the topic is such that at times my voice may dip. I just want one of you to raise your hands so that I know that I will get back to my normal tone of speaking and I'm audible enough. Okay, now Anu's question to me was, is it normal? What is normal? What is normal? Who has given us the standard of something is normal and something is abnormal? We're all going to live, we're all going to die. Just forget death. Everything that you have has an expiry date. The newspaper you read in the morning, the milk you buy in the morning, the dress that you buy to wear, your child, not an expiry date. The lifespan, the development itself has an expiry. Your child is not forever going to remain a toddler. He's going to outgrow it. So everything comes with something we call an end. So is grief a cycle? I don't know. I don't know the answer. Is it a cycle? Maybe, may not be. But we all call of everything as circles because the belief is that there is a beginning and there is an end. That's why it is a circle. And both of them mostly meet together. The beginning and the end meet. You all have heard about farmers. You've all heard about crops being grown, right? This year, a farmer grows his crop. What does he do at the end of that? At the end of that season, he pulls out the plant from earth. The plant is supposedly end of life. But what happens to the plant? If it's a fruit bearing plant, you take off the fruit. If it is your kire or your, what do you say, that palak, you're going to chop it up and you're going to chomp on it. So there was another cycle there. What happened to the earth? The plant was taken out, but what happened? The earth regenerated itself. So if you look at it at a very philosophical, at a very spiritual level, death is nothing but the end, giving space to a new beginning. And grief is not about death. How many of you believe this concept? I want all of you to switch on your videos. I'm not going to ask you questions. There is no test at the end of this 1 hour. So please feel free. This is all about us. It's about your life. It's about my life. And I will be sharing about my life, how I dealt with grief. And very briefly, I will share about it so you understand. So what is it all about? All of you, please. I don't want to speak to black boxes. So let's have your videos on at least for some time, so that I really know who I am talking to. At least I see your faces, I see you smiling. I can smile at you too. So thank you. Now, tell me, what is your idea of grief? What is grief? Is it normal? Should somebody grieve? What do we grieve about?
I think it's not only death, it's probably any kind of a loss, any kind of, a loss.
Okay. Okay. What?
Loss.
Loss.
Something
Loss.
which is quite close to us, and suddenly that thing is not there. It can be anything materialistic, or it can be a human being.
It can be a human being, it can be materialistic. What happens? You
Some
all had a dream that you want to do something in life. I don't know. You all had a dream that you want to build your own house and you want to have it pictured it in inside outside a magazine of my times, where it was an interior decorator magazine, and you have that dream never materialized. What happens then?
Sad.
You feel sad, right? You wanted to attend today's 1 hour with understanding grief, but whatever happened, your relatives landed at your door and you're not able to switch on. Or you want to be participative here, but then you can't be, because you also have to give them chai pani, and then you give them biscuits, and you have to give them breakfast. You want the audio on, but you don't have the video on. You're one leg in this boat and one leg in that boat. Then what happens?
Something you have to do which you don't want to do.
Something you have to do which you don't want to do. Does that leave you with grief?
It makes you irritated, right? I mean, you are
It
like
makes you
upset.
irritated, upset. So see how we think that grief is only about sadness, whereas grief is not only about sadness. What happens? There was this wish to attend this program. You couldn't do it. It leaves you with anger. After the 12 o'clock dot is done and your relative has gone back, for whatever reason, they didn't know, they came home, they left. Then what do you sit with? You sit with that sadness saying, oh, hell, I wish I could have attended that 1 hour. What is that? It may be not as intense as losing somebody.
Regret,
It could be regret, and
disappointment.
regret, disappointment, a sense of helplessness, or oh my God, I wish I could do it. What is all that? All that is a packet or a package which comes with grief. Grief is all about these emotions. Anything that is not fulfilled, an expectation that you had, a promotion that we didn't get. When you didn't get movie tickets, simple, no? As children, as all teenagers, we've gone to the movie theater. We wanted to go to whoever was your hero. We wanted to go to his movie. We didn't get tickets. Then you come back home and then you tell your parents, I'm feeling so sad, I didn't get the tickets. What do your parents tell you? You can go tomorrow. Why are you crying about it? But the fact remains that you are sad. And you have to deal with that sadness. And that sadness is nothing but grief. So let us not classify grief as something which is to do with death, something to do with the loss of a loved one. How many of you here are animal lovers? Have pets at home? Dogs, cats?
So I had a pet, so I can.
When your dog died, what was the first thing that people told you? You finished, you cremation, burial, whatever you had to do with your dog, you did. And then you're sitting around not wanting to eat, not wanting to go out. You're feeling sad about it. What do people around you tell you?
In just a dog.
it's okay, just
It's more than that, they said, yeah, they come and go. It's
Uh,
okay.
yeah.
Cheer up. I mean, but it was, I don't know.
It's after all a pet. It's after all a dog. Dogs only live for 14 years.
yes.
Dogs only live for 18 years. Is it true?
True.
It's not, right?
Absolutely. It's
The
not.
dog
It's not.
lives only for 14 years, but the dog is a part of my family. I'm also
Family.
speaking from a real, very close grief cycle that I'm going through. I lost my pet who lived for 17 years on March 29th. So
I
it
can
is
totally
very
relate.
yeah, it is very painful. So there's also a kind of grief. I'm not giving you theories. There are theories, there are different types of grief. I'm not going into all those details because as a psychologist, I can rattle off a lot about grief. But I just want us to understand grief in its reality. This is one aspect. It's after all, it's a dog. But ask any dog or a pet owner, they'll say it's not after all a dog. It is my dog. It is my family, right? So then, if you lost somebody, yeah, 3 birds somebody has, wow. And if you lost somebody, how many of you lost grandparents? You all seem to be young, not at my age. So many of us would have, I've lost both my parents. So when you lose an elder or a senior in your family, You have people visiting, right? We all have people visiting us. So what is the first question they ask us?
How old was he?
Correct. Who said this?
R.S. Bahadur. I am not able to go to the visual.
Okay, no, it's okay, sir. So Mr.
Okay.
Bahadur says, how old was he? Is that question relevant? Just because your father is 90 years old, does it diminish his value in your life? No, it does not, right? He was a father for 90 years. So the grief has to be greater, right? The next sentence, what do we hear?
एज में तो होता ही है, दिस इज
इस
एक्सपेक्ट,
एज में होता है, पूरा responsibilities खत्म हुआ है, right? He's fulfilled all his responsibilities. Like you and I live in this world to fulfill responsibilities. Do we live in this world to fulfill responsibilities? We live to live our lives. But now this is what most people say when you're encountered with a senior passing away. Oh, it's okay. He died. At least it was peaceful in the end. I'm not crying because he had a peaceful end. I'm also know that his end was peaceful. I am crying because I've lost someone not so much in the physical form, but that person is not available to me in the physical form. Yeah, Anu has a message to all of you. All the Anu Rs, please remain. Bharat, please rename yourself. I know saying the other Anu R, I don't know who the other person is. Okay. So now this is grief. Grief, in short, a definition which you will not find in a textbook. This is purely my definition. Grief is a sense of overwhelming sadness, which happens with any loss, any disappointment, or a sense of hopelessness and helplessness. Okay, recently in my, thanks Kanmani, there's somebody else who's not named, but she's Kanmani. I don't know which of the screens is Kanmani. Anyway, so I have recently met a couple who were planning to have a baby. I have the permission to share this because when I knew I was going to talk about it. As is the modern day world, as the modern day circumstances, they had frozen their embryo. So they were ready to have a child. They debated for 1 year to actually have the baby or not have the baby. The embryos were frozen. There was a deadline where they had to tell the doctor, you can, disintegrate the embryo and we don't want the baby, or then have it implanted and have the baby. They were in therapy for 1 year, the couple. At the end of 1 year and 3 months, they decided against having a baby. For whatever were their choices, their beliefs, their life, they knew it best and they decided. What happened? If you look at the modern day world, yeah, they made a choice. So what? No. The choice of having to give up, of actually making the choice of giving up, not having the baby. It was not a baby yet. It was just in the embryo form, but there was grief. So right now, they're in grief therapy with me. They were in initially for 1 year, almost for 15 months to make a choice. Then now they've started doing work. They're grieving for the baby that would have been. There was no life yet. So understood what grief really is. Ask your child, if you have a toddler at home, ask your toddler when his favorite toy breaks. He cries, he throws a tantrum, he's rolling on the floor. He wants a similar one. Isn't that grief? Now let her understand, that's all. Just as you look at overwhelming sadness about losing an object, losing a thing, facing a disappointment, not getting what you wanted, a breaking of a dream, unfulfilled expectations, all give rise to grief. Any questions about what grief really is? Unattended grief can lead to anxieties. Unattended grief can lead to depression. There is Asmita somewhere. She says Asmita, not AR. Okay. Hi, Asmita. Yeah.
Hi,
Yes. Hi.
Asha.
Hi.
I'm in Hyderabad.
Thank you.
Happy to see you.
Thank you. I'll hold on, Asmita. I'll talk to you. So now, any questions about what grief is? Any other dimension that you have to share? Let's not make this a monologue. Jayendra, if I can call you by your first name, you're not clear about what you're saying. I couldn't hear what you said. Unmute yourself and then speak, please.
Okay. Yeah, what I was saying is Anu already texted. I also have the same question. They made a choice of losing that embryo, right? So, is there a grief? In a grief is more of an helpless, unexpected, right? This is a more of a decision made.
Yes. What is the grief about here? Even if you don't learn anything
Only
else today, if you just understand this.
loss, only the loss, but the loss is also a loss. Loss is also something unexpected.
Yeah,
right?
just look at it, Jayendra, from a very human perspective. Like a young couple go through the pain of extraction of an egg and the sperm, freeze it in the embryo stage, outside of their bodies. Why? There is
They wanted to use it later.
They want to have a baby at the correct moment. So there was a desire there. There was an expectation that there will be life, right? But for whatever reason, they decided against it. So what happened? What happened?
Okay, basically looks like even the decision was also because of some compulsion.
Whatever.
So
we're not going into all of those things. But they made a choice. So what happened? Their dream of having a baby got stalled. When that dream got broken, what happened? One door in their life at the moment is closed. So when they look at a closed door, what happens to them? There is no possibility of going there. And what does that bring up to you? It brings up a sense of, oh my God, I can't do this. When I say I can't do this, then what happens? There is sadness. And when that becomes an irreversible decision, there is loss. And when that loss is addressed, it is grief. There is a certain grieving. Take a boyfriend and a girlfriend breaking up. The same thing, what I'm talking of right now. Every crush, if you have had children at home who are very young, for the first time they had a crush on somebody, and for within 3 months it will be over. The crush is over, that relationship, quote unquote relationship is over. But have you ever seen the child go through? Oh, it's almost like the end of the world. The same thing happens in this case with these people who could not have the baby. So there is a lot of grief. Sometimes there are choices that we make to address Jayendra's question. Sometimes in life, I'm also speaking from my experience. Long ago, Anda Kalathila, I was in a bank. I joined the bank as a clerk. Within 6 months, I could become an officer, by which time I already had a baby. So I could not move without taking my baby. And in banks, those times, I'm talking of the early 1980s, if you did not go outside your hometown, you could not take that promotion. My baby was too small, I could not take her. My mother-in-law said, I cannot take care of your baby. My mother said, I cannot take care of your baby. Family comes first. What did I sacrifice? I sacrificed my promotion. Life went smooth. There was no dearth of anything in my life. But there was a sense of sadness because I could have reached there. I did not reach there. There is a certain amount of grieving that took place in my mind for a lost opportunity. It was an opportunity that I lost. Am I clear now? I'm just driving home the point.
Very, very clear, ma'am. Both examples are very, I understand now. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, really.
Yes, Divya. Yes, Divya. I also see this. And then, yes, it is also grief. When your cat lost a kitten, it is grief. Yes. Now,
We
the
have
next thing is,
Gitanjali's hand up if you would
yes,
like to take.
Gitanjali, tell me.
Yeah, I guess it's again, I don't know, maybe it is also the sort of not having the control on what we can and losing that possibility which bring the grief.
Yes,
At times,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. Not having control also, what does it make you do? How does it make you feel?
It is like now there is no possibilities. Like the control is like I know that it's there, and that sense of
Helplessness.
assurance.
It's
So
a,
Helplessness.
Mhm. Somebody
so
said
like what?
helpless.
Yeah,
Yeah,
helpless.
so that makes you like that you don't have that options which you could have availed.
Yes,
And
yes.
and then of course we feel helpless and then like not sure. I mean, like it's like again. Uh, like now, like while you don't have a options, it's like okay now need to find a new ways which and I guess I personally even has not really found of a lot of changes and of course the changes which are against
Mm?
what I have had thought of. So yeah.
Mm. Absolutely, you're right. Whenever you feel helpless, with grief comes a certain amount of helplessness. Because you feel whatever is happening in your life at that point of time is beyond you, is beyond your capability of coping with it. That brings you a self of helplessness that makes you feel, oh my God, I can't do this. That by itself brings you a lot of grief. Okay? Yes, Bharat?
Asha, I have a question related to grief and regret. How are they related? Like,
Can I come to your question a little while later, Bharat? Because
sure,
it will take me off the topic. I'll come back to grief and regret. I'll come back. Yeah.
okay.
Yes,
Asha,
Ranjita. Yes.
yeah,
Hi,
let her
Ashna.
go.
Yes,
Asha, now coming back to the couple that you were talking about, isn't you said they were going to grief therapy? So for me, I felt would it also be guilt?
Yes. Like Bharat said, regret, guilt are secondary emotions that you experience when you're going through grief. Now, like because I've already taken it up, some Prabha says if someone denies being sad for a choice, sacrifice made, they're definitely grieving. Yes, Prabha, you hit the nail on the head. Now, to both Ranjita and Bharat, what happens? It's guilt. When you say guilt, what is the guilt about? The guilt arises from a place that I could have done something better, right? And there is an outcome to that. So guilt, you feel guilty because you didn't do something. And when do you feel that? When you feel, okay, the consequences would have been better when I could have done this. So I didn't do it. Hence I blame myself and I feel guilty. I'm cutting short the answer because I still have to cover. So you see how guilt became a part of grieving. I'm feeling sad because something did not happen. I'm blaming myself saying, I could have done this better. I didn't do it. Hence I'm guilty. Regret that you're talking of, Bharat, to give you an example. Let's say in the case of death, my mother was ill. As you know, my mother was ill. I did everything for her. But there will be a regret. Let's say the last day when she passed away, she asked me for aloo bonda, which she should not eat. The doctors had said she cannot eat any fried food. She cannot eat aloo. But something in my mind said, intuitive that I am, he said, it's okay. Let her eat that one aloo bonda that she wants and die a peaceful death rather than have that feeling that I didn't get that aloo bonda. Okay. I gave her the aloo bonda. That night she passed. But if I had not given it to her, what will I sit with? I will sit with the regret that there is one aloo bonda that she asked me and I couldn't give it to her. There was something that I could have done. Most of us, in the case of loss of a loved one, go through immense regret because we think we can fight death. It's not about grief. We go into that cycle of regret. Naturally, all of us, when I go through the grief cycle, I will talk about it. We go through regret because we believe that we could have done something differently and averted whatever happened. We feel we haven't done enough, which is again a natural feeling for all of us to feel. Why? It is driven by selfishness. Because none of us sitting in this room, however many of us are sitting here, don't ever want to part ways with somebody, don't ever want to lose something that we cherish, don't want not to get a promotion that we want. We want all that is good for ourselves, right? You want your mom to be around even when you are 100. Like my daughter says, oh, I have a grown-up daughter who's also a therapist. So she always says, Mom, you bury me under a house. So I said, what do you think? I'm going to be alive when you are going to be buried? She says, in my eyes, you're immortal. It's a joke, standard joke between us. But look at her thought process. Her thought process is, I want mom around for always. There's a safety, there's a comfort, right? Don't all of us want that? Our elders to be there. We want our loved ones to be with us for as long as we are there. Afterwards, what happens, we don't know. And it's almost like we don't care. When I am there, I want you around. So you got it? That is what drives us to guilt, how to overcome and guilt and regret to get over grief. Anu, please have one more session on grief where we will talk only about regret and guilt. Okay?
Definitely.
So this is as far as what guilt is. Regret, guilt, a sense of beating up, all of that is a part of your grief cycle. Now we've come to the grief cycle. The most important person when you want to learn about the grief cycle is Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She has written a book called On Death and Dying. She is the original author of somebody who made the grief cycle into stages. She was working with terminally ill patients, people who are in the palliative stage of their life. Everybody knew that they're going to die and how it affects people. So that is when she wrote the book on death and dying. There are lots of books you want to read. There's a book called When Breath Becomes Air on death and dying. You read all these books, you will understand death. The other one is written by this Australian doctor. I've forgotten the title. I'll send it to Anu and then she can pass it on. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, described a cycle which has got 5 stages. The 5 stages are, first is denial. See, all of us have experienced, our grandmothers have died. Yeah. On Death and Dying, written by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Breath Becomes Air is Paul somebody. I'll send it as the title and everything. I'll send to Anu and she can put it up on the group. And let's go to 5 stages. I'm also conscious of the time because we reached 35 and I need to have a question answer session and then a feedback form that will take about 10 minutes. So I have time till 50, that's 15 more minutes. So I'm also conscious of. So when we are talking about the grief cycle, just for information, you're all, you don't have to ratomorify the cycle, just understand it in reality and how it works with us. And then you will understand why it never is a cycle. A cycle is, it has to be circular, right? You go through one to the next one and to the next one and to the next one, and you go in a very sequential order. The first stage is denial. What is this denial stage? If you have faced death within the family, what is your first reaction? No, forget death, even a promotion letter or even an offer letter, even an, what do you say, somebody saying you're not getting the job.
It cannot be true.
It cannot be true. So what do we do when somebody dies? The first thing is
Denial.
we find out whether their heart there is beating. If you can put your ear to their chest and see if the heart is beating. If you have not got, you try and check the pulse. You put your hand under their nose to see if there is breath. Don't we do all of that? We do all of that. If it has something to do with office and there's a letter, you've read the letter and you know you're not getting it. But then what do we do? After 10 minutes, we read it again to say, have I missed something here? Is there something else that's written? You go to a movie theater, you don't get the ticket and you know the counter is closed, but you will stand there at the counter. I don't know how many of you actually observed this in your own behavior. You go to buy clothes, especially all the women sitting here. You go to buy a dress in West Side, pantaloon somewhere, and there's something that you liked very much. And that lady says, this from my very recent experience. I was in Coimbatore, I had gone to, it was West Side, and I liked a particular dress there. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't available in my size in the counter where they had kept it. So I called that girl and said, I want it in my size. She said, ma'am, it's not here. I'll go check inside. She checked. Said, ma'am, it's not there. I said, do you have another store in the city? Go and try there. No, if you'll get it, I'll come back tomorrow and pick it up. This was in Coimbatore. She said, even in the other store, it's not there. I came back to Bangalore, ran to Mantri Mall to see if they have the same thing. It's not available in my size. I went to Orion Mall to check if it was there in my size. I was mad. It was not there in my size. All of this is denial. It's not available in my size, period, not available. But was I satisfied? No. I said, how can it be that I will not get this? How can my dad part? How can my dad go? When my dog passed, he was the sunshine of my life. When he passed, the doctor actually declared him dead. Then I told the doctor, see, his heart is moving. It's going up and down. His chest is going up and down. He said, yeah, that's a bodily reflex. It will be there, ma'am. All of this for a person who's sitting and talking to you about grief. When it came to reality, I did exactly the same thing. I didn't want to accept the fact that he was no more. Denial comes because we are very scared to accept that there is a finality in something that we are experiencing. That is the first stage. It is actually nothing but a protective mechanism that each one of us has. Because when I accept that somebody is no more or something is not going to happen, something is not available, there's a finality to it, right? I have to move back from it. When I have to move back, what happens to me? There is hurt. And human beings are built, the Srishtikarta, God, Lord, Ishwar, whatever you want to call him, he devised us so well, saying, be wary of pain, be wary of unhappiness. What happens when it comes your way? We want to push it away. We want to say, it's not mine. I don't want you to come into my life. I don't want to experience pain. I don't want to have unhappiness in my life. It's a natural protective mechanism that operates in every person in this world. The first reaction will be denial, which will say, no, it is not possible. This cannot happen to me, right? Then the second stage in the cycle is anger. Now, who are we angry with? Bharat and Ranjita, this is in part answer to your question. Who are you angry with? You're angry with yourself because you let something like that happen. Take the stupid dress example that I told you. How I wish I'd gone to the shop 1 week earlier. Then my size would have been available. Dumb thing, but it's still there. There is anger. When your parents, when a loved one dies, what is the anger? Maybe I didn't do enough. Could be that. She did not listen to me. The person who died, you're angry. She did not listen to me. She should have taken care of herself. She was so irresponsible. You're angry, and the names that you're giving is you didn't do something. What is the anger about? The anger is about the loss. Tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up without person not being there. So you're angry with that fact, but how does it get expressed? It says, you didn't take care of yourself. You didn't do this. Had you taken the medicines? Had you done this? Had you done this? This is out of anger. If the death happens in a hospital, you're angry with the doctors. They didn't diagnose correctly. They didn't give the right injection. You have 100 things to complain about. So all the anger is directed towards various people, to self, to others, to life, to the world. 3 phases. Next comes the bargaining. Finally, you accept, okay, fine, it happened. So now take the example of the dress. Now the next bargaining will be, is there something similar? What am I doing? I'm bargaining. I didn't get something. Ranjita, this will explain our next upcoming travel. Okay, I didn't get this, so can I get this? So there is a bargaining that happens, right? Whether it's a dress, whether it is your relationship, whatever it is. So I had my aunt, that's my mom's elder sister, pass away 2 years ago. My cousin said she is actually weeping and she's telling my aunt, it's okay, you die, but you come once now, you come back once, and then you just tell me this much. She wants a statement that her mother should make to her, which will make her feel nice, saying, say this to me and then you die again. What is she bargaining for? Something where she will feel good. Then we also bargain with God. Do this for me. This happens. I'll explain why I'm saying this in this way, and I'll come back to it later. We also sometimes at times bargain with God. The next step in a linear fashion is depression. Depression is again bottom of the pit. It's a dark place. You feel isolated. You feel nobody loves you. You feel there is no hope for tomorrow. And you're feeling let down. That's depression. Slowly, 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 you move to a stage called acceptance. Acceptance as in, fine, it's happened. Now let me get my life back in place and then move. This is the cycle originally given by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She herself added 2 more stages to it in the recent times. Not so recent times, but recent times. There are 2 stages are called shock and testing. Because we're all not psychology students, I'm not going into it. It's enough for us to know these 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Now it's a cycle, so it has to happen one after another. But sadly or truly, it never happens in a cycle. Somebody gets angry first, then bargains, and then goes through denial. Acceptance is one thing that happens in the end. Or some people, this is again a different type of grief. They will accept first. Yeah, I know what to do. Mom had to die, so she died. Finished. It looks like they're very peaceful. But then grief hits them much later. I'm talking of my own thing. My mother battled with cancer for 8 months. November, she was diagnosed. November 18th or something, we did the surgery. 6 sets of chemo. And by September next, she was gone. So when she died, it's called anticipatory grief. I had 8 months of anticipatory grief because the doctor said not more than 12 months. And when the doctor says 12 months, you definitely know it is going to be lesser than 12 months. Because doctors always play along and say 12 months she'll live. So I knew she's not going to live. Turn that 1 year. Fair enough. She lived. She was in remission when she passed. She passed away with a heart attack. After she died, I'd done sufficient grieving and working through all of that. Since I'm a therapist, for me, therapy is one go-to resource. So I'd gone to therapy all along. All of that I did. I was very cool. I was very calm, composed. did whatever I had to do. My brother, my biological brother, came from the US. He came. He was weeping. I was consoling him. My sister came. I was consoling her. All of that happened. I have a not biological, but a close brother. It's my cousin brother. We all grew up in the same house. We're a big joint family, so we grew up with him. He came. My brother had come. I had consoled him. And this brother walked in and he just pulled me into a hug. And I cried so loud. I don't know where those tears were, where the sadness was. I don't know. Immediately my brother said, I came all the way from America and you didn't cry and you saw this Ramesh and you're crying. I said, I don't know what. Something in him provoked that sadness in me. It's not about you. It's not about him. It's about how my body is reacting. What happened? The onset of grief was delayed. That's a type of grief. Delayed grief. It doesn't happen instantly. So at that time, what happened? I was not in denial. I was actually in the bargaining stage. And then, or in the acceptance stage, so-called acceptance stage. But then when I saw my cousin, what happened? I moved into the bargaining stage and the depression stage and then worked myself back to acceptance. Only to tell you, we can go through grief not in a particular sequential order. You can go through any stage first and then come out of it. Next, I don't know how many of you have asked this question or how many of you have this question on your mind. Do we really overcome grief? Do we really overcome loss? The answer is an yes and a no. Because there is a new theory which says grief doesn't go. But life around you grows, hence the size of your grief diminishes. Am I clear? It's almost 10 years.
One question.
Yes.
Question.
Who's speaking?
Does the size of the grief? I am Sachin Bahadur. Actually, I'm not able to go for the
Yes. It's okay, Mr. Bahadur.
Is the grief becomes smaller or it hides behind the onload of the present one?
No, this grief size will remain the same.
Yes.
It's like when you put a dot, let's say of radius 0.5 centimeter. So that's a dot or the size of your grief. It's in the middle of the page. There is nothing around that. So then life happens, right? Whether you're crying, whether you're feeling sad, whether you're in depression, whatever stage you are in, life also grows. So then you have to eat, you learn to eat, then you have to mop, you will mop, you have to go to work, you'll go to work. Whole lot of other things grow around you. So then what happens? That entire page is filled with things. So in comparison to the other things in life, the dot becomes small. It is not actually small. This is another theory. Some of us will agree with it. Some of us will disagree with it. My hand, this is my take on it, which says, every time I think of my mother, it's now, she passed away in 2015. It's now 2024. So we are 9 years to her death. I speak a lot about my mother because I think she was my pillar, my role model, my strongest anchor in life. So 9 years from her death, do I feel sad that she's not around? Yes, immensely. I miss her every day. Every little thing that I see around me in my house reminds me of her. But am I crying or am I sad? No. That loss that I feel about my mother has now become converted into memories of all the good things I had with her. I live in the house in which I was born. Where I'm sitting and talking to you is in that same house where I was born. So every brick in this house has a memory associated with my mother for me. Initially, everything brought in, oh my God, she's not there. Now it is, oh my God, this is the place I lived with mom. This is the place that I did this with my mom. So you see how the context in my life changed? I still don't have my mom. I still feel sad, but the context in which I think of her is different. So that is how life moves. And lastly, before I end, how do you help yourself? Because I'm cutting short a lot of things, because if she had given me 2 hours, I'd have gone more into detail, but she's given me 1 hour. 1 hour, and that means I also have to compromise.
It gives us
And
an excuse to call you back.
sure, Anu, you're welcome. So now, how do you take care of yourself? The first thing, before we go even to take care of yourself and take care of others, the first thing that culturally we have never learned is how to address grief in somebody's life. Be it your own or be it somebody else's. We'll now talk of grief in somebody else's life. Yeah, Varsha, you've raised your hand.
My question was, that's where I was coming, because being an individual from our childhood, I think we have, like, we have attachment with most of the things, starting from toys to relationship to the elderlies passing away, or everything. But so I can, when you were talking about your mother, I had something similar experience with my grandmother. So, and I had all the stages, like when you were saying, I was reflecting on that time, and I could see that, I had all the stages, and exactly like you, till her 11th day, 12th day, I didn't cry because I saw everybody losing it. And being an elder daughter, I was there to, like, hold on to everybody and everything. But then one of my aunt came on that day, and she just held me, and I cried. I cried like anything. So I feel now when I look back, I see that, that was also important. Like, I was holding a lot, but when I cried, it helped me overcome it.
Sure.
Though it took a longer year, but for that moment, it was very necessary that, I had someone, and I could, like, break through and be my, express my feelings. So this is one thing that, we all have our very personal way to deal with it. So what is the right way to, and as you rightly said that, out of these 5 things, if it is done like that, point by point, I mean, whatever comes whenever, and at the end, if you have the acceptance, you dealt with it. But in between, if you miss few things, like, you have never bargained, so you'll have that guilt कि, शायद मैंने ऐसे करा होता. So, or if you have not been angry with yourself or with the other person who has done something to you, so you have missed on that, but that will stay with you, and it expands. And of course, all grief is a very deep emotion. It shapes your personality also, going back. So the things that I have gone through in my life now, when I reflect back, I know it has shaped me as, as a person that I am. So I think it's a very deep thing where, like, I don't know how to deal with it in a right way so that it shapes my personality or a kid's personality in a more positive and freer way that, to live. So I think you are also going there only.
I was going there. But to answer your question, there is no proper or the right way to grieve. Okay. Whatever I'm telling you today in terms of stages, there are lots of theories about grief, not just Kubler-Ross. There are other authors also, other propounders who've told you, who tell you how to grieve. But it is such a personal process that you said, it may not follow any of these parameters. And some of us may never go through all the 5 stages. We may just go through one stage and that's done. It's done. You are moved on in life. Moved on doesn't mean that you've forgotten. Moved on means you've said, yes, this is a part of life. This is where I am at this present moment. Yes, tell
You
me.
have
Varsha.
accepted. Yeah, you have accepted.
You've accepted. That stage of acceptance should come in. That is when you have learned to live through grief. When you come to a stage where you're accepted and said, yeah, this is final. But there are other things that I can do. If you go back to how I was saying, how to actually cope with death, I'm being secular, but however, I will like to talk a little bit of the religious. It's true of all religions. It's true of all sects and communities and all of that. At least in the Indian context, even in abroad, it is there. We all have something called the mourning, something called the bereavement. If you go through the Hindu cycles, what do? We have 13 days of obituaries or whatever, karam kriya, whatever we do, 13 days. The soul is going to come back, the soul is going to do all of that. We're not getting into that discussion today. There are 13 days functions. Previously, every month there was a day set aside where that person was remembered. There was an honoring of the person was done, and it continued up to 12 months every month. The first year was grandiose. It was celebrated very well. After that, every year, I've had 5 dogs in my life to this day. Every day of the 4 dogs, this one is not at 1 year old. Every anniversary of a dog's death, we go and feed dogs. What am I actually doing? The first thing that we need to do when we have to get over life is to honor the life that was. You take it into other things, honor what you have. In the present, what do you have? To honor that. And the person you lost, to honor him and say, yes, you were a part of my life. It have these riches, not as in money and wealth, but I have got so much from you. That is called honoring the life that was. Correct? Now again, I'm coming back, circling back to where I left. The first thing that all of us have to learn is how to talk to others when they're facing the loss of a loved one. It's not okay to go and say it's after all a dog. Oh, he was old, so he lived a full life. He died an easy death. No, that is not. Then the next question most of you will ask me, then what do we say? My answer would be, don't say anything. There is no need for words because your words are not heard. When I am sad, 100 people can tell me 100 things, but only 2 or 3 of this filter into my mind. The rest of us is heard and in the passing. What is more important then? A lot of us hesitate to go to places where there is a death or something because we don't know what to do and we don't know what to say. That is why there is a saying, in Kannada at least I know, which says, it does not matter if you do not attend a celebration, a festivity, or a wedding. But it matters a great deal when you don't turn up for somebody's death. Why? It's not your words. It is your ability to go and stand there in the presence of that person, which reassures them that there is somebody who cares. Just a pat on the shoulder. Just standing next to them and saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your loss. Simply just standing there is sufficient because if 100 people visited me after my mom passed, what I do know, Ramesh was there. I know my other cousins were there, very important people in my life. They were there. What did it leave me with? It left me with a comfort that I can put my head on somebody's shoulder and cry. I can put my feet up and say, yes, somebody else will take care of me for a little while. That's all that I need. So most of us have to learn. And what do you tell yourself when you're going through a loss? Oh, be strong. How many of you said that to yourselves? Be very strong. Don't cry. You have to live. You have to, no, you can't cry. What will happen to your children? You can't cry. What will happen to somebody else? Rubbish. If you've said that to yourself, from today, make a promise that you're not going to say that to yourself. It's okay to be weak. Acknowledge to yourself that you're as human, as fragile as the porcelain doll that you have at home. It's okay to be broken. Life will heal you. Again, time will heal you? No. Time doesn't heal. Life grows and life heals with some amount of help that you need. It's already 12:01. Okay. Now,
Thank you,
how
Asha. I think listening to you, I think nobody realized what the time was. Very, very engrossed in the last part, especially. I don't know if I interrupted something that you were trying to say.
No,
Did
that's
I?
okay.
Okay.
I was conscious of the time. I lost track of time.
No,
Yes.
this was, we all lost track of time. I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody. I think the one thing that I'm picking up is, grief always is a very scary emotion for all of us. But from what you said in the end, it's very similar to other emotions in that sense that all that we want either to cope with it or to help others cope with it is to allow it, right? Is to allow somebody to be that way and allow
Yes.
ourselves also to be that way. I think that is one thing I'm really taking away. And I loved how you said honor the life. I think that speaks to me as gratitude. So thank you so much for that as well. And if I may just add one more point is when you explained about grief, what all it entails, I think it made it, for me at least, it made it seem like I'm actually dealing with grief probably on a day-to-day basis. So I don't need to be afraid of it anymore. I am dealing with it. I will be able to deal with it. That is the comfort that it gives me with the explanation that you provided in terms of broadening the scope of what it means. So thank you so very much for that. If there are any, one or two key takeaways that you would like to add before we close the session, Asha.
Yeah, I know it seems abrupt, but take whatever we have spoken, whatever you've discussed back home. Then maybe if you all feel greater need for other things, then you can reach out to Anu, you can reach out to Pukar Foundation, and they'll call me back, and I'm more than willing to spend time with you and help you go through it. Let's all learn together. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that offer. I'm sure we're going to take you up on that. Thank you for spending this time with us this morning. And thank you to everyone as well for being participative and being present today.